Hello everybody, and this is my 40-gallon Skittles tank, aka call tank, aka plant farm. And so I had to do a whole bunch of work on this. Well, basically I needed to pull out a whole bunch of moss. For one, I need moss to sell on my website, markshellyaquatics.com. And two, I'm in this tank catching probably at least 40 to 100 shrimp every single week, sometimes 200 shrimp every single week in here. And with all this moss and not any open spaces, it makes catching these guys out pretty hard. So I'm going to harvest out all this moss, and then when we get all the moss taken out, I'll put some back in, but when we get most of this moss taken out, then we can get a good look, because I honestly haven't got a good look at what these shrimp look like. I know I've been putting in a bunch and pulling out a bunch, and there's a whole bunch of babies. And look at this, we're pulling up, look at that great big huge mat of moss. Pretty wild. So now the rest of the video, the tank is going to be stirred up, but that's just part of it. Look at all the different colors. I know just last week I put in about 500 snowballs in here. So shrimp end up in here for a number of reasons. I call it my Skittles. It's also my call tank. It's wherever I have all these different projects going of all my lines. And look at this shrimp coming up here. Look at this. There's two of them right there. But we have an orange eye neocaridina, which is pretty crazy. There's several in here. At one point I see one that's almost an orange looking shrimp with orange eyes. So I'm gonna have to get there's a guy I know of in Germany that was lining out the orange eye neos, and I'm gonna have to try to do something similar to that, because that's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to set up some 10 gallons and try to separate the orange eye genetic. But none of my lines have that. That's just something that popped up from mixing all these different genetics I've got. So that's another thing that's cool about these Skittles tanks, is you get crazy things. I got all kinds of realies in here and all kinds of one-of-a-kind one-offers, that you get when you mix all these crazy genetics. And even the wilds are pretty dang cool, I think. But yeah. So now we're pulling out more moss, and look at when I pull the moss out. Look at all the shrimp that just come pouring off every little piece of moss I'm pulling out. This moss is just loaded with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of babies. Probably more like thousands of babies. Every little bit of moss is covered, and look, the moss is growing up in between the stem plants. So I pulled all of it out, went through it all. There's just so much in here. Other than where the rotala is and the big crypt in the back corner, every single inch was covered in big thick mat of this pilo moss. Again, like I said, it's available at my website, markshellyaquatics.com. So again, I get to talking about, so now we got all the moss out of the way. So now this is a good chance for me to see what all we got going on in here, just how many shrimp are in here, because I have 300, 400 shrimp available on my website just on these, and I need to make sure there's enough in there to cover it. And I knew there's tons and tons. It's just kind of like throwing some algae wafers and just scoop them out and see how many are left. And we're never getting low, but you can never really tell because of all that moss. And like I said, I just put in probably about 500 snowballs in here last week, and the snowballs look really cool. The white really stands out with all the different colors. So I think it's pretty cool. There's to put that clump of moss back in there. And then I put another clump of moss back there. But what I was talking about earlier was the whole social media thing and Facebook groups I see about calling shrimp, and they're, you know, people who don't know what calling shrimp means, they're aghast. Oh my God, how could you call out these beautiful creatures? They do not realize that in the shrimp keeping world, calling just means to take out. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of you guys that got cichlids or whatever and feed your less desirables, but I'm not about that. I don't want to do that for multiple reasons, but I am pretty much a shrimp farmer at this point, so I love shrimp. So I'm not trying to feed my shrimp I breed to other fish. So all my lesser thans end up coming in here. So I have tanks, I have multiple lines, multiple that serve different purposes. So like some tanks are mainly to sell out of, some tanks are to make my lines better and better and better. And with those, most of my 20-gallon tanks, I breed out tons and tons of shrimp, hundreds and hundreds of shrimp, pick out the best handful, set those aside. Everything else comes in here. So there's lots and lots of good shrimp that end up here, and all the good genetics. So there's even lots of good shrimp that are born in here. And speaking of those orange eyes, you can see there's a red one right there. Now also I put in a bunch of Bloody Marys in here. So a lot of the red ones are Bloody Marys, and even some of these wild ones are pretty freaking cool looking. But I always say, if you're gonna breed shrimp lines that you want to breed the best shrimp, if you want to do 4 lines, you need 5 tanks. If you want to do 2 lines, you need a 3rd tank. You gotta have somewhere to put your calls, like I said, unless you're feeding them to something else, which I don't recommend doing, but there's people that do that. And then you're gonna get all kinds of cool things. Like I've got these orange eyes popping up in here quite a bit, enough to make me take notice, and seeing the guy, and I think he's in Germany, doing it on Facebook in a shrimp group, and I'm gonna see what I can get out of him. Because like I said, there's an orange one in here with orange eyes, there's a red one in here with orange eyes, so it'll be pretty cool to see if I can make it happen. I'll have to set up some tins to do it, but you get all kinds of, there's that orange one that right in the middle on the pile right there, orange shrimp with orange eyes. It's kind of orange wild looking, but there's some pretty cool shrimp, and you never get this if it wasn't for mixing all these different genetics together. So yes, when you mix these shrimp together, you're going to get lower qualities, of course. That's just the way it goes. But then you get all kinds of crazy things that you never see. So there's good and the bad. So at this point, I have a lot of my colors I have separated by calls. So I have the higher grades and the mid grades, and then whatever ends up in here. So if the Skittles was getting low, instead of throwing them all, like if I call out a whole bunch of blue shrimp, instead of putting them in the blue velvets, and I need Skittles, and the Skittles tank population is looking like it's getting low, then I'll put in all those blue shrimp in here. So that's how my Skittles tank works. So, I'm just shuffling shrimp for quality and different purposes for my website. But this is how I end up with a tank like this. So many shrimp, oh my goodness. It's pretty awesome. And for me, when I cleaned all this moss out here, like I said, I needed to know how many shrimp were in here. And so now I have a pretty good idea that I can keep on putting Skittles in stock on the website and not worry for a while. So that's pretty awesome. And as you can tell, I also trimmed up a bunch of the Rotala. So here at the end of the video, I'll show you guys, if you order Rotala here in the next couple days, you'll be getting a whole bunch, because I got a whole bunch of Rotala right there that I trimmed out, and then that's my moss bucket. Almost all that moss was out of the Skittles tank. There's some in there before, but not very much. So thank you guys for watching. This was a productive video and fun project. Bye.